Good morning, and welcome to Ark and Dove Presbyterian Church in Odenton, Maryland. You are now in the lobby, the weekly broadcast of the goings-on at Ark and Dove outside of service. Even in these strange times, with all of us sheltering in place, the congregation has found a way to meet virtually. I'm your host, Brian Boudreau, Clerk of Session at Ark and Dove, and I'm glad you could join us today. Today, we have Facilities Elder Autumn Vernon to discuss with us some new improvements to the physical church we've made recently. And we'll talk about these spaces and how they're maintained. But first, we have a very special service for you today. We will be breaking new ground by welcoming a class of new members virtually. We have 8 new congregants who will be joining the church as members today. I want to take the opportunity to introduce them to you ahead of time, and we'll see them during the service in just a little bit. So we have Bob and Shirley Fuller, who are coming from the Gilroy Presbyterian Church in California. They are now closer to their adult children in the area. Sarah and Ryan McGarry are joining us, and they have 2 children, Lydia, who is 5, and Tommy, who is 1.5 years. Connie Miller is the mother of Christina Cosio-Clutch, who is an active member with her husband, Sean, and the grandmother of Gabrielle and Serafina. Stacy Schoonmaker and Rob Suggs are Yolanda's daughter and Michelle's sister. Stacy and Rob's daughter is Ren, and you've seen her running around the church. And finally, Amy Goldberg, and she is married to Ethan, who attends Ark and Dove with their daughters, Emma and Elia. So welcome to our new members and their families. Today's service will highlight the themes of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Our music leaders have selected several pieces that reflect this theme, and Pastor John will provide a thoughtful sermon on the Good Shepherd. Now, are you interested in helping the local community? Food pantries are fully up and running and have massive requests for food. We are now supporting a food pantry that's set up in the Kingdom Celebration Church here in Odenton. For those who've been around for a pretty long time, this is where Ark and Dove used to meet before the church was built. This food pantry will deliver food to Mead Village, but we are in need of more donations. So Pastor Tim has asked us to consider putting a few extra items in our cart when we go shopping, and then drop it off at the front porch of the church for our mission team to deliver to the pantry. Now, we have been sheltering in place for what seems like an eternity, more like 6 weeks. And as Maryland appears to have crested the curve, depending on what models you look at, it is time for Ark and Dove to start reflecting on what reopening will look like. This topic is all over the news, and Session has started to take a look at it. We are getting guidance from the presbytery as well as state leaders on what to do next, and we will be sorting through the many issues to make sure we are safe and we work to come back together in person. While I can't say what this will look like finally, I think it's reasonable to expect that it will not look like it did before. So we will keep broadcasting to you for as long as necessary. And then looking out a bit further, a long-range planning team is now assembling, and they are starting to work on a vision of what Ark and Dove will look like over the next 3 to 5 years, and how we will get there. Ark and Dove has done a long-range plan regularly over the lifetime of the church, so we have a good process in place. But look out for info coming soon over the next 6 months as the team meets, and including ways to participate and to give feedback to the team. Now, I would like to turn our attention to our guest today. Autumn Vernon has been the facilities elder since the beginning of the year. Welcome, Autumn, to the program. How have you and your family been coping with the stay-at-home order?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me on the program. We've been coping well. The homeschooling's going fairly well, and some people know that we moved from off of Wall Chapel down to the Two Rivers area. So moving during this time was really interesting, but everybody's getting along well and still unpacking, but it's coming along.
Yeah, well, take your time. Unpacking takes time. So Now, tell me about the facilities ministry. What does that mean, really?
So the facilities ministry includes both the physical building as well as the grounds. Um, there are many different facets to the facilities to include the things that need to be inspected, like the sprinkler system and the fire extinguishers, to the roof, to the flooring, to the paint, and the grounds, mowing, the playground, and the woods that we upkeep.
So you take care of anything that has to do with the building. Were there any surprises about the facilities ministry that you hadn't expected before you became elder?
Perhaps my biggest surprise was how many people and how many moving parts went into making Ark and Dove the facility that it is. So when you're there and you're just attending, you see the clean floors and the painted walls and everything, lights going on. And when you become the facility elder, you realize, hey, it takes people to run these things, to clean the floors, to have everything the way it is, to make the service happen. So I think just realizing the amount of effort that everybody puts in on a weekly basis to make Ark and Dove what it is was just surprising and overwhelming for me.
Wow, excellent. There have been several new developments in the facilities area. Can you share with us some things that have happened, like the new things that you guys have implemented?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So, one of the difficulties when we're not there on a weekly basis is how do we make things better with the building and the grounds during this time? So, we've started the mowing process, which we have somebody who comes and mows on a weekly basis. And part of spring cleanup has been to have different families sign up. So, we've had 6 different families over the last 2 weeks come and do weeding and raking and plant the flower beds. And I have to say, it's just looking gorgeous right now. So I'm excited for that, to see the finished product there. Another thing we've done while people have been away is to paint. We've painted the men's room, and I'd love to have a volunteer to next paint the ladies' room and do so. If anybody is interested in painting, then I would definitely appreciate that. And there'll be further signups to do some more outdoor work. So if your family is feeling like they'd like to get outside on one of these beautiful weekends and do something good for the church, I would really appreciate that as well.
Oh, that's great. So lots of opportunities to help out the church, spend some time at the church, distancing socially as appropriate. That's great. So earlier I talked to the congregation about what the return to worship may look like. Can you offer any insight that you might have on what we could expect? Will we still
Well,
do the live streaming? How about social distancing?
absolutely. So we've made a big investment into the live streaming portion of this. We have the new camera, which is mounted up on the wall above the doors entering the sanctuary, as well as a wonderful new computer that runs and makes all this possible. So we will absolutely continue doing that for the Ark and Dove members and those out there who aren't able to attend the service. On the first service, I suspect that we will have social distancing, so there'll be much fewer chairs. And there'll be some big changes about how we greet each other. So we'll just need to wait and see how we decide to lay that out. But those will be some of the big ones. I can say that the cleaners have been absolutely wonderful. They've been in there weekly, and we've done a deep clean on the church. So when you come back, you can be assured that it's been cleaned to the highest standard.
Great. I know we're all looking forward to going back to the church and reconvening in the lobby again and in the sanctuary. So thank you for all the work that you're doing there. So as elder, you must deal with immediate issues, and then there's sort of like a larger sort of strategic plan that you have to come up with. Could you describe for us sort of maybe something interesting about some of an immediate action that you have to take care of? And then I know you've been focused on sort of the COVID-19 and the response to that in your new job, but have you had time to think about sort of the more long-term aspirational goals for your ministry?
Yeah, definitely, Brian. So one of the biggest things that happened right when I became the facility elder is the leak got a little bit worse. So I'm thankful to say that the leak has been fixed, and so that was one of those immediate things that had to get done. And from what we can tell, that leak has been taken care of. And then obviously you mentioned, and we talked about it, the new camera. You know, that was just this immediate thing that kind of got thrown at us. And there's so many people on the technology team that have done an amazing job. And those that have been at worship every Sunday, physically there, have done just an outstanding job of making this happen. Pastor Tim and Pastor John, who have been preaching to an empty sanctuary. I just can't say enough of how much that's come across, and just been wonderful. They've been able to adjust to that. So that's kind of a big thing. As far as aspirations go, I think when we gather for fellowship, that lobby area, I'd really like to take that to the next step. We've had plans in the works, and we just haven't been able to do it. But I'd love to make that a larger area where we can all gather and both services can really fit in that space.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Autumn. It's been a real pleasure to be able to talk to you today. And I think we sometimes take for granted all the work your ministry does. So it's been truly enlightening. So take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brian.
And thank you for joining us today. We are truly blessed to have such an engaged and compassionate congregation. Information about the things we talked about today are in the weekly archive message that you should receive, and it's also available on the webpage. So please be sure to check that out. And as always, if you need support, whether it be protective masks or just an understanding ear, Ark and Dove is only a phone call or email away. Please stay tuned, and the live streaming service will begin momentarily. See you next week.